It is getting very busy in my IKEA cabinet. So in today's video, we're going to look at all of the plants. We decide if some of these plants might have outgrown the space and need to move out. We are repotting any plants if required. And basically, we're just going to have a bit of a chatty repot. So let's get started. Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I absolutely love my IKEA cabinet. I think it's turning 4 years. Has it already been 4 years? Oh, yeah, 4 years. Yeah, I moved with this cabinet 3 times. Yeah, okay. My IKEA cabinet is my small plant nursery, so I really use it to onboard any small plants or cuttings into my environment or my house, my collection. And that's mainly because it gives me the ability to control conditions quite well. Conditions will always set the growth potential, and then the care approach is just realizing that potential. With the IKEA cabinet, I have... Come here. Oh yes, my darling, huh? Yes, huh? We're doing little cuddles. I have much more control over the conditions in the IKEA cabinet. It's insulated, I've got a fan in there, I've got grow lights in there, so the conditions in there are more controlled and they're more consistent. So it's perfect for smaller plants that you're trying to establish. Smaller plants are more vulnerable, you know, they haven't built resilience just yet, and things can go wrong much quicker with them. So the IKEA cabinet is the perfect environment for them. Now, because the conditions are so good in there, the plants outgrow the cabinet quite frequently, and well, that's what we're doing in today's video. Some of these plants will probably have to move out because they're kind of stealing too much light from all the other plants. In general, it just seems a little outgrown or overgrown, so I just want to look at some of these plants. I haven't really done anything with these plants in a couple of months. I was too busy with all of the plants in my garden and then everywhere else in my house. I kind of neglected the cabinet. I just kind of keep it shut and, like, you know, it's its own little ecosystem, let it do its thing. But I think today's a good day to get on top of all of this. Now, usually I do repot throughout the year. Yes, my baby. I do look at the claws going into my pants. Oh, you can't see the claws. Bradley, you're just cut off. I do repot throughout the whole year, but I usually try and avoid it where possible, right? If I can't avoid it because the plant is reaching the top of its moss pile and so on, I have no hesitation. But with anything else, I usually like to wait for spring. But because the cabinet is its own little ecosystem anyway, I think plants in there don't really care when exactly I'm going to repot them. Alrighty, Bradley, how are we going to start this? Given that you're sitting on my lap right now, are you leaving? Perfect. Okay, it is a small space. I have you on wide angle, so I think on camera, at least in the viewfinder, what I can see, it looks so much more spacious than it actually is. Like, I can almost touch the camera. So it is a small space, so let's hope I'm not going to knock anything over, but I was thinking, let's just have a look at all of the plants in there, and then once I've taken everything out, we're in a better position to actually look at the setup and recap some of it. And maybe I'll just take this one. Well, this one is not in the IKEA cabinet, but it's on top of my IKEA cabinet. It's my Anthurium vitarifolium, but there's nothing needed for this one, so I'll park this here. Let's just take out one by, hang on, I'll turn the fan off so it's silent. Alrighty, gorgeous. Alright, this is Philodendron Patriciae. This is the newest leaf, it just unfurled, and this one I actually put on a moss pile fairly recently. You can see the first, can you see it? You can see, you should be able to see the first root going in over here. So that's good news. It feels pretty light, so I think I'm going to give this a water. Actually, I'm going to take all of them to the sink and I'm going to spray them today. I don't like this light situation. One moment, please. This light is slightly better. Alright. This is my Anthurium Magnificum variegata. You see a little bit of variegation over here. It has done nothing for the longest time, and finally I can see some roots. I mean, you can see there's more algae growth than root growth on this plant. So nothing I really want to do for this plant right now because it's finally doing something. So I'll just park this on the side. This is a Monstera obliqua propagation over here. It's unfurling a new leaf. Looks okay, cannot complain. I can't see any roots in the moss, but given that there's leaf growth, I'm just assuming there must somewhere be root growth. So again, I'm parking this on the side, no action required. These two are the same, they're little propagations of my crazy rubbish. You know, I've got this lush pot of crazy rubbish on my dining table, and every now and then I just pull some out to propagate so I can give them to friends. And I can see some roots here, but nothing crazy. It feels pretty light. I can see some condensation, but I think I can still water this. It feels light. So I'll put this in the watering pile. Same one over here. Since I repotted it, I haven't seen any growth. Ah, there we go. Ah, sweet. There's the first leaf coming out here. I don't know if any of this is going to show. And I can see some decent root growth over here as well. This one feels fine, so I'm putting this on the no action required pile. Actually, they all need action. I'll spray all of them, like with water. I just clean their leaves. Okay, here we've got a very lush pot of obliquus. There's some new leaves coming out here. I think there's 4 or 5 cuttings in here. So that is very nice. It's looking good. It's also a fairly recent addition, maybe from like February maybe? So maybe, February is half a year ago. Okay, so not so recent after all. Looks good, but it feels very light, so watering pile for this one. Okay, this is my Billy Coysum, and I'm working on a separate video on this. Now you can see these old leaves over here have all gone very yellow, and I think it's sun exposure. I think it's sun stressed. Can't see pest issues. Yeah, I can't see pest issues. Anyway, this is the newest leaf. It just unfurled, and look how stunning it is. It's a hybrid of Vercoysum and Billy. And root growth in here as well. Even the root 2 sticking out the top already. I don't know if you can see that. Again, just goes onto the watering pile. This one is my Anthurium luxurians. Absolutely love this plant, and have a look at this cute new leaf unfurling. They're so deep burgundy red, and then they'll go orange and then eventually kind of green silverish almost. So very excited about this leaf unfurling. I do think it would be due for a repot, but I don't want to do that while it's unfurling the leaf. So I'm just going to trim off some of the old ugly leaves and water it. Oh wow, this has grown really well. Pretty sure this is a hybrid that I made with a friend. He had a Magnificum X Forgetii, and I gave him the pollen from my queen. So it is the closed sinus is the Forgetii parentage coming through. To be honest, it looks like a Forgetii Magnificum. I can't really see any queeny behavior in here, but it's still a stunner. Really stunning plant. This is the newest leaf. You can see it's still really, really dark and soft, but beautiful. Have a look at all of these roots. And so yes, I could give this a moss pole, to be honest, but I'm just going to give this a larger pot and make sure that these roots over here are all touching a moss pile, not a moss pole, so they can expand. So definitely need a repot over here. Oh, and I already mixed up my piles, didn't I? Ah, whatever, they just all go in the same pile now. I can never remember this one's name. Something with C. AJ gave it to me. Looks super nice and shiny, and there is a new leaf coming out over here, which again, I don't know if you can see all of this. It looks okay. It looks fairly root bound, but I think I can still get away until this next leaf has unfurled, but it needs water. Alrighty, here we've got my Philodendron rugoisum. Also the pig skin one, you know, so really nice texture. It is kind of growing off the pole, and I then just kind of in hindsight fiddle these roots into the pole. It's also starting to grow via cataphyll. See how over here the next leaf comes out of the petiole of the previous leaf. Now going forward it will grow via cataphyll. It's a sign of maturity, which is very good. I hope it's not going to flower for me though. But basically nothing to do over here, and this plant, oh look at that, hardly any root system in the pot actually. this plant is taking up too much space, and also I don't think this plant really requires the high humidity, so I'm going to move this out of the cabinet today, but still I'm going to give it a thorough watering, a spray and so on today alongside everybody else. Alright, this one is Syngonium Frosted Heart, growing its newest leaf over here. Also quite lush, but it is more compact and closer to the pole, so it doesn't reach forward as much, hence not as much of a space commitment. So I think I can keep this in the cabinet, but this will be the next one to move out, I think. But for today, again, I reckon just a water and a spray and it can move back in. Over here I've got a kind of sad propagation of Anthurium. This root looks terrible. Oh yeah, okay, those roots were both dead. Okay, so this is clearly not happy with what I'm doing. I stripped it all and then I put it in water, but nothing's happening so far. So I think I need to, I don't think water is the problem. I think it's not getting enough light, but once I move the Rugosum out, this should get more light. It is actually growing a new leaf here. I don't know how, honestly. This one has had root rot, I think 3 times already, so I think it's just destined for failure. Maybe I should try something different. Maybe I should try it in just moss. Oh, actually I like water. Fuck it. And then lastly, I've got a variegated Melanoid that has given me some decent variegation, but I've started seeing some very like red discolorations, and I think it is actually getting too much light. Some okay roots in here as well, needs a thorough watering, but I'm doing a separate video on this plant, but so far so good. The latest leaf, however, looks a little challenged. I don't know what's happening here. I suppose we'll find out. I think for today nothing to do but to just water and clean it. That's it. Oh, hang on, it reshot here as well. Oh, okay, not bad. You see this? It's giving me a second growth point here. So it's definitely something happened. Usually a plant, but the first growth point is still here as well. And it's starting to grow via color fill, I think, now. Usually when a plant activates a secondary growth point, it's because there's something wrong with the primary one. Like, but I couldn't see anything there. But anyway, it is what it is. Chaos around me. I know you can't see it, but for me it looks like bloody chaos. So what I'm going to do is all of the ones that don't require any activity today, I'll quickly move to the sink just so they're out of my vision, so I can focus on the ones that I need to focus on. And we're going to see them all again later when we water them and when we put them back. So see how this plant is also kind of moving away from the pole a little bit. I believe that is because in my IKEA cabinet one of the lights is actually coming from the front, not from the top. The plant wants to probably face the light, hence it's moving a little bit off the pole, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take twine. Twine is nice and soft, so it won't actually like injure the plant or the petiole, or, you know, it won't like kind of cut into it. And I will just very gently tie this towards the pole, just so the plant can get a bit closer. The roots will start attaching into the pole, and then that twine will kind of, if it gets wet, the twine will kind of just break over time anyway, but that's okay. By the time the twine breaks, the plant will have already attached to the pole properly via the roots. So it's really just a temporary fix. Beautiful. Let's do the exact same thing with the Rugosum. Again, you can really see it's kind of moving away from the pole. Now over here, also quite interesting. Can you see these roots? And these roots that even have secondary roots coming off of them. So because the IKEA cabinet is so high humidity, all of the plants root like crazy. I mean, you'll see that later with that other Anthurium again. Not a bad thing. Now over here I need to be careful. If I pull this too harsh towards the pole, I could potentially snap existing roots. So I need to be kind of careful with that. I just want to give it a general reminder which direction it should grow. You know, it's like, hey girl, this way. Actually, on that note, I had a funky question the other day. asking why some plants I call her she, or some plants I call him. Most of the plants, however, are called she, and I think it is because in my first language, German, the gender for plant is female. It's die Pflanze, not der Pflanze. So I think it's just kind of like subconsciously my brain then assumes that plants are female. But then if I think about it, like monsteras, for example, give me more masculine energy in someone. But at the end of the day, I think also we don't need to overthink it. I think somebody just wanted to jump on the political correctness bandwagon, and I don't know, it's like, come on, just relax, it's just a plant, you know. Alrighty, now with this one, I don't think I need to do anything. It's fine. Okay, I'll take these 3 to the sink so I can make a little bit of space for the next round of plants. Alrighty, so look at this one. I don't like this look, and there seems to be a lot of brown shit here that could just rot and cause fungal issues. I can't feel any like soft squishy bits, which would indicate some sort of rot issue. So I think this is fine, but I do want to give this some fresh water, and then also better light. I think that will be the problem here. Yeah, as I mentioned, I do want to repot this eventually, because I think there's some roots over here that could really benefit from that. But as I said, I think it's a bit too early for that yet. But what I'll do is I'll pile a little bit more moss on top of here. Can you even see any of this? See these roots over here? Well, they're drying out. Well, not fully drying out because it's a fairly high humidity environment in there, but I'm not taking full advantage of them. So I'm just going to pile a little bit more moss on top of them. And by the way, all of these clips you see in every pot, that's how I secure them to the grit. All right, nothing to do here. Looks good. I do hate this brown spot here. I'll just cover it. Yeah, looks okay. I don't want to disturb it, so I'll just leave it. This variegated plant honestly has done nothing for the longest time, finally giving me a leaf, and the leaf even has variegation. So I hope it's just turned a corner. Should I do something about it then? No. No. Yeah, don't. So I've had some thrips issues in my IKEA cabinet. You can, I think, see this damage over here. I hope you can. And I was so lazy, I didn't even take the plant out of the cabinet. I just took my Comforter spray and sprayed in the cabinet and closed the door and hoped for the best, and one application seemed to have done the trick. I think Comforter spray has been discontinued, but it's now just called Contender by Bayer. Let's talk about watering. I am really lazy at the moment, or recently. So as I mentioned, I've had the IKEA cabinet for 4 years now, and obviously it was one of the first things I kind of had when I started my plant collection, because I started my plant collection with lots of small plants, right? So it was the perfect way to start off all of my small plants and give them a good head start. One moment, oh my god, so unorganized today. So definitely, if you are a new grower and you want to invest in something, I think investing in an IKEA cabinet is going to give you a great way of safely starting all of your plants. The only issue, I suppose, that I see with an IKEA cabinet is that the conditions in there are so good that you might have a challenge moving them out of the cabinet once they outgrow the cabinet, right? Especially if you live somewhere that is much drier, you might be able to create a nice high humidity environment in here, but then when you move them out, the shock is too large. So you might be spoiling your plants almost too much, getting them used to an IKEA cabinet. I personally have very good conditions even outside of the IKEA cabinet, and I'll pop in 2 screenshots over here. Like, there's hardly any difference, specifically during winter, because in winter it is so humid anyway. It's raining every day pretty much. Summer can be drier, but especially in winter there's not all too much of a difference. I suppose the only difference is that outside of the cabinet there's more ups and downs in general, whereas there is less fluctuations in the cabinet and just a more consistent average. Anyway, I still think getting some sort of IKEA cabinet, and it doesn't even need to be an IKEA cabinet, it can be a prop box, you know what I mean? Just some sort of environment that gets your small plants to grow up as fast as possible and as strong as possible, so that you can pop them on a moss pole as soon as possible. I think it's a great way to start. That first initial bit, the first year, I always think is the hardest one. Once you know the plant and the plant knows you, of course things can always still go wrong, but I think the chances are lower, right? That first initial onboarding into your place, that's where I personally lose the most plants. So that IKEA cabinet is really helping with that, because there's 99% humidity in there, consistent temperatures. I don't heat, but the grow light produces warmth, right? And then I insulate the cabinet so that none of that can escape, and then I have a fan in there for air circulation that makes the plants grow strong. So I've got everything that the plants need in there, and it's very consistent. Where was I going with this? So yeah, great way to start your small plants, or in general, great way to start growing, because you can really focus on caring for the plants because the conditions are so perfect. If you grow outside of the cabinet, it's a toss-up between, hey, is this plant struggling because of the conditions, or is this plant struggling because of my care? Keep in mind, not all plants love a high humidity environment, but most of my plants, the tropical aeroids I like to grow, they do enjoy the high humidity. Now, when I first got it 4 years ago, and let me just work on this. So I cut off this inflow. I have no desire on pollinating this. This plant is quite small anyway, and pollinating it would take a lot of energy from the plant. I rather have this plant grow leaves than inflows. Wow, I actually hit the bin. When I had less plants back in the days, every single Saturday I would take all of my plants out of the cabinet to my sink, thoroughly water them, let it drain, pop them back into the cabinet. Now that didn't take that long, but it's definitely a bit of a time commitment. Now, I went with this every Saturday because, well, I have a Monday to Friday job. Saturday was my watering day. Eventually I ended up having so many plants I couldn't really make it work for one watering day anymore. And realistically, it's not the best way to water your plants anyway. Just because it's Saturday doesn't mean your plants want to be watered, right? A Saturday in winter, they might not need water. Thursday in summer, they might have already been thirsty. So I don't think having a day to do all of your plant care is a super good strategy, but I know that it is a more realistic strategy for a lot of people, especially if you have a full-time job, children, other commitments, and so on. You know what I mean? Like, plants don't need to take up your entire life. That's fine. I'm just removing a little bit of moss. I'm just loosening up this root ball a little bit, but honestly, I'm not gonna fuss over it too much. Smells good in here as well, no root rods. So I'm going to reuse this. I just want to loosen it up a little bit, especially because I'm going to put this a bit deeper in the pot, so I'll put aeroid mix on top of the moss, if that makes sense. So I want to remove as much of the moss on top. So eventually, very slowly, I kind of just moved towards a continuous effort in watering. So I just water whenever a plant needs water, but that requires frequent checking, and obviously you're running chances of missing a plant as well. It takes less time for me, kind of, you know, because I do a little bit here and there, instead of, like, I used to reserve 4 to 5 hours on a Saturday morning to bring all of my plants into the bathtub or the sink, water and spray them with water thoroughly and so on. And definitely that effort paid out. My plants looked amazing at that time because I just put so much effort in it. But as the plants grew and as I got more plants, and then I got a garden and a greenhouse and so on, I also need to split my time wisely. And realistically, the 4 or 5 hours of just repetitive watering every weekend is not the part that I like really enjoy. So I've gotten faster at it by just putting water bottles upside down on my moss poles. Some of my other plants I just kind of water a little bit and just hope that it wasn't too much. You know, I don't take all of them to the sink anymore and thoroughly water them until there's excess water. I'm just kind of gotten a bit lazy, but using my knowledge to my advantage to avoid common, like, beginner mistakes like overwatering and so on. Also use a very chunky aeroid mix, so I'm not concerned about overwatering, which is also, by the way, why I got away with watering them every Saturday, because the chunky aeroid mix is so chunky, I don't risk overwatering it. because it drains so well. So even if I do it every Saturday, even if the plant didn't need water, because when I water it with the Chunky Aeroid mix, it wouldn't necessarily cause a lack of aeration. If anything, watering it from the top flushes more oxygen through the mix, so it's actually a positive. Anyway, where am I going with this whole story? I gotten so lazy recently. Oh shit, I just ripped that root. Recently, and by recently I really mean the last maybe 1.5 years or so, I hardly ever take my plants out of the cabinet to water them. I just take a spray bottle and I kind of just spray them. And I spray the ones at the top first, and then water drips into the one below, and kind of, you know, and then I have a towel sitting at the bottom of the cabinet to just catch the excess, and then I'll wash it after. But I'm basically being super lazy. I don't want to remove the plants and then put the plants back and like, oh, which spot were they in and all of this. So it is a lazy approach, but as a result of it, I think I'm not necessarily optimizing the watering. I think the growth isn't super optimized. Like I saw, like the growth back in the days was definitely faster and better because I provided nutrients more frequently, I aerated the mix more frequently, and so on. I kept the leaves cleaner and so on. And that effort just really shows, you know, like I know people like a set and forget setup and so on. I highly disagree. I do think the effort you put in your plants is going to be reflected in the way that they look. Not saying that the effort is everything. First and foremost, you need good conditions. You know, effort is never going to be able to compensate for lack of conditions. But as I mentioned, conditions is not an issue in the IKEA cabinet. So I think I need to get back at being a little more diligent with the actual care part or put more effort in it. But for me personally, it's also a bit of a trade-off between caring for my plants and creating content. I probably spend 3/4 of my time creating content and just 1/4 actually caring for the plants, if that makes sense. Content creation takes a long time. So, but ultimately, if it wasn't for content, I wouldn't be able to dedicate that much time to my plants in the first place. So it's kind of like a, you know, a bit of a trade-off. What do I want? Do I want this to be my job? Do I want to be able to look after plants full-time? Well, if yes, then I need to make sure that I have an income stream as a result of it and not just have nice-looking plants. Nice-looking plants are not paying my bill. I need to create content. And that's fine. I really enjoy the content creation part as well. Content creation has always been a hobby of mine. So it's more of a trade-off now. I'm just like, okay, I'm enjoying the content creation and I'm enjoying the plant care, but I'm more realistic in my expectations. I know my plants aren't gonna look perfect. I know my plants will have pests here and there. And the pests are gonna leave some damage because I'm gonna be too slow in getting on top of them. I know my plants aren't going to grow as fast as they possibly could because I'm not providing them with nutrients as frequently and consistently as I used to. I'm not watering them, so there could be some root rot due to the lack of water and so on, you know. And I'm totally okay with that, you know. That is just the trade-off that we all need to make. We need to have our priorities, and I prioritize content. Content creation is my livelihood. And of course I create plant content, so I want to make sure that my plants also look good. But I think it's also the reality of working with plants. Like, they are living organisms, and you can enjoy your planty hobby without every plant just being optimized and maximized and perfected and all of this, right? It's more about the journey for me these days rather than having this perfect display at the end of the day. I mean, ideally I would love both, but it's a trade-off. So I hope this message resonates with people. I do this full time and I still don't have time to look after all of my plants the way that I want to look after them. So, you know, if you have a 9 to 5, some children, other commitments, other hobbies and so on, that is perfectly fine. That does not make you like a bad plant parent or something like that. You're just being realistic. Just make sure that your expectations are also realistic. Alrighty, I repotted this, just gave it some more of my Chunky Aeroid mix, all of my Anthurium Chunky Aeroid mix, and then I put a layer of moss on top. That kind of takes these roots that you saw sticking out and then funnels them into the pot and ensures they don't dry out before they reach the medium. Are you telling me I only needed to repot one plant? Huh? I thought this was going to be like a huge repot today. Oh well, I mean, I'm not complaining. So let's clean up because I'm already so sick of the mess. Can you see the little baby in the basket? Alright, I have decided to not take them to the sink, but rather just take them outside so I can kind of be a bit liberal with my spraying. Again, it's just water. Clean, healthy leaves, you know, optimize photosynthesis, but at the same time, they also seem to be preventing pest issues. Of course, if you have a major infestation, and oh my god, how annoying is the construction. If you have a major infestation of some sort of bugs, you might need to go to some chemicals. But my approach is like 99% preventative. Oh my god, look how nice. Look how nice the water drops on this brand new leaf look. Oh, that's sexy. Careful, you might get wet, baby. And in this water, I put GT Foliage Focus, about 5 milliliters per liter. And 1 milliliter of GT Root Zone. Both of them linked in the description. Okay, that's it. These small pots, I'm not worried about falling over, so I'm gonna put them on a little tilt so they drain better. But because they're on a tilt in the IKEA cabinet, they'll drain really well inside the IKEA cabinet anyway. I'm just preventing mess. Anyway, you're running out of battery, so let's go back inside and get you changed, huh? Let's get cleaning. My little humidity reader ran out of battery, so I'll change that too. Now the screen is broken from the high humidity. It's like 99.9% in there, but it should still be working and syncing to my app. Now I'm too lazy to take the back grid off, and I'll take you closer in a sec so you can see how I put it there. I'm just worried if I take it off, I'll never get it back on there. But I want to clean the other windows, like glass surfaces. Oh my god, this is like the exact width of the door. Right, I love this thing. This is my Kärcher. When I moved house last, you know, I don't know how it works overseas, but over here in Australia, when you move house, you need to obviously vacate the thing and like clean it, and it needs to be spotless, right? So there's, if you get a cleaner to do an end of lease cleaning list, they usually cost you like $400 or $500, seriously, like 300-400, depends on the space. So last time when I moved, I was like, you know what, let's take these $300-400 I would spend on the cleaner and buy cleaning equipment that makes my life easier doing it myself, and then I still have it going forward as well. So in my last house I had heaps of windows and mirrored wardrobes and so on, so I was like, if I buy like a window cleaner machine that makes it enjoyable and fun and faster, it's basically for free because I'm saving the cleaner, right? And then I get to keep it, and I give it to Tim, I give it to AJ, everybody wants to have a go at it. So it was a good investment. And the best thing is, look at this, you get to see what you've done. Look at how green this water is. That is just the level of satisfaction that I need in my life, okay? While we're talking about random things, excuse me, look at this newest leaf of my El Choco Red. Oh, that's sexy. Well, let me bring you closer so I show you the setup before I fill it with plants, yeah? At the top over here, we've got one Soltec Growth grow light, and I've got a full review of that grow light on my channel, and I'll link it in the end screen. I then also have one of these grow lights on this door over here, so that the light doesn't just come from above, but comes from the front, so that the leaves are facing forward, so giving me a nice display side. So 2 grow lights, one on the door and one from above. Over there I've got a little suction cup, and that suction cup just holds the fan. I have it off for now so that it's not so loud. Hang on, let me connect it back. And that fan is on 24/7. That never turns off. Little top tip, if you have like a piece of cardboard or anything really, Ideally not cardboard, to be honest, because it gets moldy, but YOLO. You can put it here so it minimizes the noise of the fan touching the glass and kind of vibrating the whole thing, if you know what I mean. Now, the first iteration of my greenhouse actually had the IKEA pegboard in there because, well, it's an IKEA cabinet. I just bought all of the things from IKEA. And that pegboard got moldy within just a couple of months because it's pressed wood, right? It's not meant to be used in a 99% humidity environment, and even the airflow did not solve that issue. But the pegboard came with brackets. You can see one here, and you can see one of these other brackets down there. So when I noticed that the pegboard is going moldy, I found this metal grid at Bunnings, and I was like, how the hell am I going to connect this to the back? And I was like, well, maybe it happens to just work with the grid, and that's exactly what it does. It's actually just cable tied to the bracket that came with the pegboard, and the bracket in itself is drilled into the hole in the back where you would normally drill holes for the shelving. So it is a super improvised setup. But these days, actually, I've seen, and I cannot remember for the life of me, but there's even there's even shops that custom create or custom print shelves specifically for IKEA cabinets, like corner shelves, back shelves, whatever. So I think these days, if I would set up a brand new one, there's more options available. When I set it up 4 years ago, I just went with something really basic. There's, I think, a full Instagram on IKEA cabinet greenhouses, where you can probably get lots of inspiration from other people that use it with different plants and so on. My setup has been like that for 3.5 years now, apart from the lights, which I changed recently because I didn't like the light just coming from above. But apart from that, the setup hasn't really changed. It's kind of set and forget, and it works for me. So look, I really like my setup. If I would set up a brand new IKEA cabinet, would I go with that grid at the back again? Probably not, because I wouldn't buy the pegboard just to get the brackets to then buy the grid to put the grid on the bracket, if you know what I mean. But it worked out for me. Now the good thing is, when I bought the pegboard, oh, by the way, the fan has been on 24/7 for almost 4 years and no issue. It's just a desk fan. I'll try and link everything that I used in the description, by the way. Now, with the pegboard came these little clips for the pegboard, which I very poorly spray painted black, by the way. And they happen to fit perfectly into the grid as well. So I got lucky on this one again. Anyway, let's have a look. I think the plants outside should have had enough time to drain, so let's put them back in here and rearrange a little bit, make sure it looks nice, see if some plants might move out. We'll see. I know. We'll bring them back. Bring back my girls. Come on. Let's rebuild it from the bottom up, huh? Maybe. I also think this one was slightly sun stressed, so moving it further away from the sun, the light. The artificial sun. I think we'll set it up without this for now, and then we'll take it from there. Alright, and let's also try and learn from our mistakes. This one I feel like got a little bit too much light, so I might just put this one further down. I think it looks good there. But also, let's not fix what's not broken. If a plant was very happy in that spot that it was allocated, then let's keep it there. By the way, these clips are pretty strong. Even the larger 14 centimeter pots hold quite nicely with them. Wow, this one has a big spread of leaves. It looks a bit dark down here now, but that's because I haven't closed the door. Huh? I have this beautiful Philodendron verrucosum crossed with serpens, also called, I believe, titanium. And I love my verrucosum hybrids. And I know that verrucosums love a good high humidity environment, so I was thinking maybe I'll pop this in here. But I am worried about this one potentially then getting too much light. So I will need to monitor this. I like that. We'll keep it like that. I'll bring you closer in a sec. Gorgeous. Okay. Close this back up. Also decided to just take all of my IKEA cabinet related content and pop it in a playlist, which I'll link at the end screen, which is coming up now. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment. See ya!